guys, what's going on? I wanted to share a few tips with you that I wish I would have known before signing my lease. So last year I moved out of my mom's place and into my first ever big girl apartment with a property manager and a landlord whom I did not know, and I learned a lot of lessons in this past year. So I thought I would take those lessons, tie them up in a nice little bow, and share them with you. So I hope this is helpful. If you have not ever rented your own apartment before, there are some definite kind of guides that I would share with you to kind of make sure you check off all the boxes. And the first one being the most important is you're going to need more than just the first month's and last month's rent. It's pretty standard nowadays to need a security deposit plus first month's rent, but what isn't always shared in the get-go is whether or not you need a parking permit or a pet deposit or renter's insurance. So it's pretty standard to need renter's insurance, but it was just a couple things like that that I didn't take into account when I first signed my lease. So I actually ended up moving into my apartment with $25 in my bank account and like $3,000 worth of credit card debt, which I would highly recommend not doing if possible. So take all of those things into consideration when looking for your first apartment and kind of signing it and getting everything in order, which leads me to my next tip. Number 2, don't forget about utilities. And I'm not just talking about gas, water, electric. I'm talking about Wi-Fi and cable and your phone bill and your car payments. So I didn't ever have to worry about Wi-Fi in my first house that I was renting, nor did I have to worry about it when I was at my mom's place. And that's just one of the things that was a total oversight. So don't forget that Wi-Fi is not free, and budget accordingly. My next tip would be introduce yourself to your neighbors before you move in, if you're able to. I moved into an old Victorian home where I had 3 other tenants, I suppose 3 other neighbors, and I tried introducing myself to the people that lived below me and almost got attacked by their German Shepherd, which should have been red flag number 1 into not signing the lease. The other 2 tenants were not super friendly, but I was just like, no, it's fine. Like, I just want to be close to the yoga studio. I'm gonna make it work. So the more you know, the less surprises. And when I ended up moving into the apartment, the people below me fought a lot, and the guy that lived next to me upstairs literally locked his dog in the house, and sometimes I'd walk upstairs and it would smell like dog poop, which like hurts my heart. But just kind of make sure you do your due diligence with who you're sharing the building with, and obviously if you're moving in with a roommate, make sure you vet them as well. So my next tip, number 4, is understand what's expected of you as a tenant and ask yourself if you're okay with that. So the apartment I was living in, it was an old Victorian, 4 units, right? And we had a shared walkway. We had, you'd walk up the stairs and it was like kind of a shared hallway basically. And that was not cleaned by the landlord ever, so it was always dirty, and of course none of the tenants wanted to be responsible for it. It snows where I live, and if it snows less than 2 inches, they're not gonna shovel it for you, and the walk from the house to the car was pretty significant, and there was no salt provided, there was no shovel provided, so it was our responsibilities as tenants to buy a shovel, get the salt, and do it ourselves. And we got multiple days of snowing just enough so that the landlord was not responsible for it. And I wasn't fully aware of that before I moved in. So just understand what's expected of you and make sure you're okay with it. My next tip would be ask for a walkthrough with the landlord and property manager before and after you move out. When I moved into my apartment, it wasn't very well cleaned. I also have just a very high standard for my cleanliness, I guess. But just like little things, like there's dust webs on the ceiling, there's crap on the floor, the blinds weren't cleaned, the windows weren't washed, like stuff like that. And asking them to walk through it so that way they can see what you're marking on, and then asking them to do a walkthrough afterwards. And if they flat out refuse, that should be a red flag. So if they refuse to do it and you're kind of in a pinch where you still need to move into the apartment, make sure you document everything. Take videos, take pictures, write notes, and then forward all of that to the landlord so that way they have a copy and you also have proof that you shared that with them there. So next point, number 6, double then triple check everything in your lease and the person you're signing the lease with. Vet them just as much as they vet you. They want our social security, they want our credit check, they want everything that they could possibly know about us to make sure the person that is moving into their place is legit, which is totally fair, but you also deserve to have an understanding of the individual that you're signing the lease with, whether or not they have a good track record of returning security deposits, whether or not they have a good track record of getting things fixed on time, and just kind of like asking around the neighborhood what they think of their landlord. Like that's why introducing yourself to your neighbors is so important, because you can get a feel for your potential landlord. And my 7th and final piece of advice is do not let your landlord pressure you into signing your lease. My landlord had called me at 9:30 at night on a Wednesday, and she said if I didn't make it to the office that night, somebody else was going to sign the lease that morning, and I needed to get there immediately. And when I initially got that call, I got the gut feeling of like, oh my god, like I don't have the ability to come up with all of this money right now. First month's rent, security deposit, plus dog deposit, and I don't even have my checkbook with me. And I should have listened to that. I should have took it as a sign for, well, okay, I can't get there until Friday because that's when I get paid. If this guy gets it, then I wasn't supposed to get it. I frantically hurried and panicked and ended up getting it to her, only to pay her. Like I paid her on February 6th of last year, and I didn't move in until March 1st. So I don't really understand what the hurry was. Again, if that other guy would have gotten it, then should have been a sign. But I hope these tips are helpful. I just want to make sure that you protect yourself, because at the end of the day, these landlord and property managers are in it for their bottom line. I hope you don't end up losing your security deposit because you signed your lease with someone who is super greedy and doesn't really give a shit about you. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and if you are looking for a new apartment and you're interested in a little tips video on what to look for when looking for your apartment, let me know. But I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Cheers.